right, what's up, and welcome to the Oklahoma Sports Podcast. We're the little podcast on the prairie. My name's Jared, and this is Chase.
Hey guys, how are you today?
Man, we're chilling hard. First episode here.
Yeah.
Really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to get going. Talk a little OU football, Thunder basketball.
Yeah, and make something, generally what my idea was at least, is make something that we would want to watch, guys our age or whoever, but just make, digestible videos that, any of us could just click on and watch really quickly, maybe at lunch when you're at work or on the way to work on the morning, and just whatever.
Yeah, definitely something that's not too long. We don't want you sitting here an hour and a half trying to look at our ugly mugs for that long.
Yeah, nobody wants to look at us for that long.
Definitely not.
One thing we're going to be covering, a couple things, is Oklahoma football today, a lot of, and then also the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll be covering some other stuff in between there, maybe Big 12 sports, Oklahoma State, things like that, but the majority of our show is going to be OU football, the Oklahoma City Thunder basketball.
Yeah. So let's go ahead.
I guess let's jump in. Yeah, Oklahoma played Texas this weekend. OU Texas was this weekend. OU unfortunately losing 48-45. It's kind of a bummer, man.
It is a bummer. Most points Texas has ever scored in the game.
Yeah, and I think in one of our little promo videos we said something like, "Can't wait to see you guys next Thursday. We are, hopefully going to be celebrating an OU win." And we came close. There was a huge comeback. OU was down big time in the second half. Came back from 21 points down. Tied it at 45. Gave Texas too much time to come back, I guess. And that just leads us to a whole kind of where we're going to start off.
Slew of things, yeah.
Because I guess we can just point that way. But this is an Oklahoma snap that we've got on the screen. This is a defensive snap, and I think this is actually in the first half.
Yeah, it was.
This just goes to show you a lot of what was going on during that game, and it's going to allude to a lot of what we're going to talk about later in the show. You see Caleb Kelly featured here. He is number 19 there. He's kind of got both hands up. He's doing one of these, which is a classic stance. You just want to be in that stance before the snap. So that just, the offense knows you're ready. If you're just kind of going,
I mean, same with Kenneth Murray. If we want to be honest,
Instagram for Kenneth Murray is like this. So it's a very classic defensive stance. We see lots of West Coast. This is a West Coast defense.
He looks ready to tackle someone.
Obviously, we're trolling. This is not a good look for Oklahoma because the ball's in the air. We look at the center.
Snapped, yeah.
The center has snapped the ball. He's moving to block. I think that's Gallimore on the inside there. But the ball's in the air. It's nearly in Ellinger's hands. And Kenneth Murray's doing this. And Caleb Kelly's doing this.
Yeah.
And then you can see Buki on the side. He's kind of blitzing, but kind of not.
He looks somewhat ready, at least.
He's somewhat ready.
I don't know if he made the tackle, but he looks ready.
Again, this is what we're going to go to a lot in this particular podcast, just because the last two times OU has lost a football game, they scored 48 against Georgia and 45 against Texas.
Which is inexcusable. Scoring that many points in a game, you should win it easily. It's
90% of the time.
Even if the game's close, your defense should be able to get enough stops for almost 50 points to be able to do so.
I wasn't going to do this, but a couple of the clips that we launched just to kind of promo this and let people know that the first episode was about to happen. I think it was just before the Texas game, and we said something, specifically me. I'm trying to give myself some props.
Go ahead.
All OU had to do was stop Texas a few times, stop the quarterback power a few times, just once or twice, and this game's over. Yeah. We can roll that clip. If they can just get a couple stops, they don't need many, I don't think. With the explosive as this OU offense is, they don't need a whole lot of stops, I don't think. That's something that I said, and I really believed it. I said Texas's defense is good. Maybe it's not as good as last year, but it's good. At the same time, OU's offense is better.
No, I agree. And, from what we talked about last week, I talked about OU wanting to control and dictate pace of play and wanting to get a push on both lines. Well, I don't know if Tom Herman, if you're listening to this pod, I thank you. I guess you gave us a loss. But Texas did that exact thing. They dictated pace of play. They ran the ball. They hit some crucial third downs when they needed to. And most of all, they controlled both lines of scrimmage. OU's defensive ends got swallowed up. It seemed like every play, if the running back or the quarterback power could get to the outside, before a linebacker could or a safety could get there, they were gaining 8 or 9 a play.
Right, and one of the things I hit on was quarterback power. I believe Ellinger scored at least twice on just kind of a quarterback sweep. Great snap to him. He just takes it, goes around the edge. Nobody touches him.
Yeah.
And that's all. OU, this isn't Here's the funny thing about this particular thing. This isn't a new formation that Texas cooked up this week. This is like their very typical, quarterback's going to take it, and they would run the power out of this a lot. You would have number 26 and just 47 out there kicking somebody out. Ellinger would just follow those guys. It's very basic football.
And falls forward for 7 yards. And
it worked.
And this defensive formation with guys looking lost, unfortunately, wasn't something we just saw once or twice in the first half, and then we got adjusted.
This isn't like a random out of context picture. And I'm looking too. I think that's Khalil Houghton out there playing safety. You see him kind of right on the hash.
Yeah,
he's taking his mouthpiece out to tell like the play's happening.
He's trying to relay a signal too late, and the ball's already snapped, and guys just aren't prepared.
Yeah, and so here like. The where OU ranks defensively right now is just it's crazy.
It's not good.
So here you go. This is Sooners defense opponent conversion percentage. Third down, their opponents convert 42% of the time. That ranks 98th in the league. Fourth down, this is the crazy thing, and this number's skewed a bit by the Army game.
Yes.
Fourth down, their opponents convert 63.16% of the time, which ranks 96th. Interesting that actually ranks 2 spots better than the third down. But regardless, you've got 2 stats right there already that are in the almost in the 100th of FBS, which there's only 130 teams. Yes. We look at the red zone percentage. This is just percentage of scoring. So this means when the other team gets down inside the 20, how often do they actually score the ball? 100% of the time against the OU defense.
That's going to be dead last.
That's dead last in the league. 130th out of 130 teams. And then red zone touchdowns. This is how often teams get a touchdown once they get inside the 20 against OU. 85%, 124th out of 30th.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be mad about the red zone percentage if the red zone TD percentage wasn't so high. If they give up a couple more field goals here and there instead of letting teams get in the end zone, you can bite that bullet a little bit more, but it hasn't been good, up to and even after this Texas game.
And that's the thing. Even if you can bend but don't break, that's awesome. If they get 2 or 3 field goals out of Texas instead of just touchdowns every time they touch the ball, it's a win. So that's a crazy thing. We talked about before this. Just be as good as Tulsa.
Yeah.
Just be as good as Kansas State. Yeah. Not even good.
No.
These guys OU's recruiting are good players. They're we got 5-star guys starting on defense.
Yep.
Just be okay.
Just be good. Just fly around and make a play. The biggest thing from the way it looks is guys just overthinking. It's like, I've got to take a step inside, look at the running back, then look at the quarterback, then burst and make a play.
Yeah.
Just clear your mind and go and make a play. And I think that leads to these percentages being a lot lower and these ranks being a lot higher.
Yeah, and so ultimately it led up to a lot of OU fans feeling a certain way about Mike Stoops, and we got this guy who's a friend of the show for sure. We don't even know who he is, but he definitely listens to the podcast.
Yeah, you can tell.
He's got the Fire Mike Stoops Cookie Monster t-shirt at the Texas State Fair, clearly airbrushed. Clearly he paid like $30 for this.
Oh, easily 30. Yeah.
He's got it, but listen, it's not a problem. He's got it pulled over the polo. Yeah. He's also got money in his pockets. We know that. Okay, he's not afraid to pull an airbrush shirt over the polo.
No, and my biggest thing is why Cookie Monster?
Yeah.
I've
thought about that. I've actually tossed and turned.
Yeah, I don't know if you would have gone with something that was a little bit more crimson-y, like an Elmo,
right,
or a little bit something a little bit meaner, like an Oscar the Grouch. I mean, if we're staying Sesame Street characters.
I know where you're going with this. Cookie Monster's way too neutral.
Yeah.
We need red. We need some OU colors.
Yeah.
Put Elmo on the shirt. But I like it. So ultimately what happened after the game, there's lots of rumors that came out about halftime just being a mess in that locker room. What happens the next day, we hear all of a sudden, hey, Mike's fired.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy during the middle of the year. According to a lot of the people I've listened to, this is the first time that OU's ever fired a coach during halftime or
mid-season.
In the middle of a season. They didn't fire him at halftime.
Yeah.
I know some OU fans probably wanted him fired at halftime. He's fired. They're going to go a different direction. Just crazy.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. In all my years watching OU football, again, we've never seen anything like this.
You text me even.
Yeah.
You were like, is that real?
Yeah.
I haven't been near internet all day. Is that true?
I was in the middle of the country, doing nothing and got to my phone and finally I saw it. But yeah, I was floored. I think this is just Lincoln Riley trying to put his staple on this team, saying this is the direction we want to go. I'm young. I can tell this program is in a good spot. Let's go ahead and try to make that leap and be on the level defensively of not even like an Alabama or a Georgia, just on a TCU or an Ohio State or a Tulsa. You know, anybody that's
what I was saying.
That's around that 30 to 40.
Tulsa held this team to 28 points.
And Kansas State 19.
Kansas State only allowed them to score 10 offensive points.
And that was all in the first half.
And so a lot of what I heard this week leading up to us recording this video was all these radio guys talking about, oh, they just don't have that kind of talent on defense. It's all offensive recruits. No. And here's the other thing. We have a lot better defensive recruits than Iowa State and Kansas State, who we just talked about. And both those teams are going to play Texas a lot better than OU did.
Yeah, Kansas State, already did.
Yeah, Kansas State's already proved it. Iowa State shut Texas out just a few years ago. You're going to tell me OU doesn't have anybody that can even get close to guys at K-State or Iowa State? I don't believe that. I won't. And that's part of the reason I think OU decided to move forward with this. Just felt like, Mike Stoops, who's a great person, I'm sure, just couldn't motivate this defense to play the way that these recruits are capable of playing.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if there's just a disconnect between him and maybe he's a little bit too old school for some of these new school type players.
Yeah. I was going to say, he actually had an interview today, the day we're recording this, on the Sports Animal with Dusty Dvorak. He actually came on a couple times.
Former OU and Chicago Bear.
Yeah. So Dusty Dvorak, classic. He played for Mike Stoops the first time he was in town.
Yeah.
Then he left for Arkansas.
2000 to 2003, somewhere in there.
He left for Arizona and came back to Oklahoma. So Dusty interviewed Mike, and Mike had a couple things to say, which I thought was really interesting. He says he just couldn't get the last few classes of players to completely buy into his system. And that's why these teams struggled. They just didn't believe in what the coach was saying to them. They kind of wanted to do a different thing.
Yeah, which makes sense, but at the same time, I don't think that's all of it. When OU hasn't had a dominating defense in almost 10 years, I think 2009 was probably the last time that OU had that anything close to what looked like a dominant defense, causing a lot of turnovers, getting a lot of pressure. And that was when Venables, I believe, was still here.
Was the co-coordinator. And as we all know, Brent Venables was eventually forced out. It was him and Mike Stoops kind of co-coordinators, and they kind of picked one, sent the other one aside. We know Brent Venables now is at Clemson doing a heck of a job with some just – it's not really fair because he's getting some amazing recruits, but he's having he's what's well known as the best defensive coordinator in college football.
Yeah, oh, easily. And again, having guys help, but having guys that buy in help even more than having just these 5-star recruits at different positions.
It's a classic thing we see in the NBA. A coach will be there, just feel like he's dragging a team down. Some interim stupid Luke Walton coach will step in, and that team will look 100% different. Yeah. It's all about effort, especially on defense. Yeah. And hopefully that's what we see going forward. OU has to pay Mike his base salary off in monthly payments. Yeah. Which luckily his base salary is only $275,000. I say only because with incentives he would have had $950,000.
And I don't think that team was going to hit those incentives.
I don't think they were going to get the incentives. I don't know. I haven't looked at his contract and seen what they were, but they were ranked before this game 89th in the country. 89th.
Which again is out of 130 teams.
That's crazy. And they were ranked 89th before this game, give up 48 to a Texas team that's never scored that many points in the Red River rivalry.
I don't know if they'll score that many points the rest of the season.
They probably won't. Just get used to it, OU fans. It's probably the best performance you're going to see from that Texas offense the rest of the season. And it's crazy. Like I said, all we have to do is be as good as Tulsa. That's it. Not even K-State or Iowa State. And we have better recruits than all three of those teams I just mentioned. Just play decent.
Yeah, just sound football.
Probably still has his job.
Yeah.
It's just nuts. It's just nuts. And so then we get the announcement from Jake Trotter. He was one of the first ones to break it. Ruffin McNeil and Bob Diaco will be the coaches. Ruffin McNeil is going to be the defensive coordinator moving forward, and he did say he's going to be in the booth like he had been. And then Diaco is going to be the outside linebackers coach, which I'm excited to see because that's a spot that needs improvement.
Yeah, and I believe that the Diaco was a DC at Notre Dame and a head coach at UConn before coming here. So he's got some coaching experience coming in. So I think he's going to do a good job there. And I like that Ruffin is giving the defensive tackles and defensive line completely away, and so he can focus on the defense as a whole.
Yeah. And Diaco's moving to outside linebackers. He's a guy that was at Nebraska, which has a really deep tradition, as a lot of, especially the older OU fans know. Now that they're in the Big Ten, we don't see him as much. But the older fans remember Nebraska just having some elite defenses, and Diaco was part of that tradition there. He was a little bit more recent now that Nebraska's kind of fallen off a bit. That's when he was there, but it's good to see Diaco stepping up into a bigger role. He was just what they call an analyst before, which means he didn't even really get to be on the sidelines or in the booth on game day. Now he stepped up into a bigger position. And just kind of excited to see the moves he makes. Lots of the rumors out of the kind of Sooners camp is he's a heck of a coach, and OU was lucky to get him. And they were just looking for the right spot for him to kind of start filling in. Well, now's his big chance.
Yeah, and I agree. And I like a lot of the moves that Lincoln's made, whether bringing in Shane Beamer to do special teams. You know, if you follow college football at all, you know, Frank Beamer, Beamer Ball, you know, Virginia Tech. It's his son. And so special teams has looked a ton better with him in there. So I'm trusting the decisions that Lincoln's making, with, you know, promoting Ruffin, and then I think Diaco is going to have a big hand in what that defense does the rest of the season.
And we'll get into more of that later at the end of the show, kind of what we're looking at going forward. It's difficult. You know, we've been kind of hard on Mike. All OU fans kind of have. He's a great guy. Yeah. You could tell by his interviews today he's a really well-liked guy. He's a really well-spoken guy. But it's just time for a change. You see a lot of his players coming out and making good statements about the kind of person he is, and you can just hear that just by a couple seconds of him on the radio.
Yeah, you could tell because there were a couple of times when he was talking to Dusty Dvorak that he almost got choked up.
You could tell,
and then you can really see the human side of things. You know, a lot of times fans tend to take that 30,000-foot look at the team. Like, oh, well, the defense is bad. Let's let this guy go. This offensive tackle has played bad for a half. Get somebody in there to replace him, cut him, take a scholarship. Exactly. So I like the interview because it lets you show a little bit more of the human side of football and realize that these are people with families.
Yeah, it's good to see that because you would just, if you didn't have that human side, guys would just constantly tee off on these coaches and just go off and say, flip them off and like, get out of here, we don't want you.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see the human side sometimes, and this is a tweet from Kenneth Murray, who's a starting middle linebacker, just a sophomore at Oklahoma. He says, "All I can say is thank you, Coach Mike. You gave me a shot when nobody else would, and for that I am forever grateful. No matter what people say, they will never know you for the coach, for the great person you really are and how much you care for your players. Thank you, Coach." And so we saw lots of videos and different texts put out like this by former and current players under Mike. Again, just has to be a heck of a person. Unfortunately, sometimes this is a business. It's about winning games.
Yeah, it is, and especially at a school like OU. It's considered, one of the blue bloods in college football, and so it's just held to a higher standard. And I think Mike understood that, in his last press conference. Just his tone and the way he talked. He talked about wishing that he could get guys to buy in a little bit more, and he hates that he's not been able to get these guys to their full potential. So I think after that Texas game, he kind of saw the writing on the wall.
Definitely, you have to. He knows Oklahoma can't be okay with 130th ranked defense.
No, you can't be, and I don't think any Power 5 program for that matter is going to be okay with that, because not many of these programs have an offense as potent and as great as OU does.
Yeah, if it weren't for OU's offense, this game might have been a 21-point game. OU might have got just completely blown out.
And it was really close to being that in the second half.
Yeah, and he was a little bit bailed out by that offense, and Texas kind of slowing down, trying to run some clock. OU makes it a close game. But again, like you said, I think Mike knew it was kind of time. He just couldn't put that bad of a defense out on the field that many times and expect to continue moving forward. Wish him the best going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Just as a person, I think hopefully he goes off somewhere and succeeds. I think a lot of people echo that same idea.
Yeah, I definitely do, and I hope that he can take some time to kind of watch these games with an outside perspective and learn from not his mistakes, because I don't know that he necessarily made a ton of mistakes, coaching this team, but maybe his coaching philosophies, maybe tweak those a little bit. He's going to have the rest of the season off, and I know he'll get back into it. He's still a young coach. He's still got potential, and maybe it's just best for him to get out of the Big 12 and start with a different program and help build them up and go from there. But I think if he can tweak some of his defensive schemes and views on things and just become a better coach in general, I think that'll help him in the long run.
All right, so I guess now is a good time to go into Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder obviously finishing up preseason yesterday as of when we're recording this. You have a couple things that kind of stuck out to you, maybe some big takes that you got from this preseason?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't want to overreact because it is preseason. But a few takeaways for me. The first being that Dennis Schroeder is going to be a menace in the pick and roll. Here's a clip here that's just he and Patrick Patterson, who I don't know how much he'll be in pick and roll with.
I was going to make a point before you hit play. I hope this is what they do with Patrick Patterson.
I do too.
Unfortunately, the guy's being asked, a lot of Thunder fans hate him, and just bear with me a little bit, Thunder fans, because he's being asked to play a little bit out of position, in our opinion.
At least last year off the bench.
Last year, at least, and so we'll see what they do going forward, but this is where I want to see him. So
yeah, definitely. They were playing Atlanta, put him in the pick and pop, and Schroeder hits him with a nice behind-the-back pass, and he drains the three.
Very simple jump
Super
shot.
simple. What Schroeder has been great at is working in the pick and roll, whether it be with Adams or Patterson, which when Russ gets back, a lot of his pick and roll will be with Noel or Grant. But with every one of those guys in their 4 preseason games, he's looked great, looked comfortable. He's been really good making decisions on the court. And then, other than that, he'll be a great insurance policy. If Russ happens to be out the first few games of the season, you've got a guy. You've got a guy who can step in, has been a starting point guard in the league, and if not, then you probably have the best backup point guard in all of the NBA.
I like that take.
Yeah.
I like that take. Best backup point guard in the NBA.
I mean,
let's roll with that for the season.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're right, and then we'll have a lot of clout.
If preseason's any indication, I mean, he's averaging probably 15 to 20 points a game, 6 and 6. He's had some turnovers.
It's really good.
But he's already got chemistry with a lot of the bigs.
It's really good. Anybody else?
Hamidou Diallo, which was the 45th pick in the draft. He's got major upside. The Brooklyn Nets initially drafted him, and then OKC put a package together to go and grab him because obviously they saw something that we're seeing now. But what I've liked about him is every game he's gotten more confident. Every game he's actually increased his scoring output and field goal percentage. So it's like he's getting more confident. And then this last game he actually ran with the ones. He started and ended up scoring 19 points. He ended up playing like 40 minutes, but still shot 3 of 4 from 3, 50% from the field.
Wow.
He's looked really good. And I'm not even impressed with the scoring as much as the other things. He looks far and away more confident than Abrines or Ferguson, who's in concussion protocol. We wish him all the best. But he's looked better than both those guys on the floor. Between that, he's a great offensive rebounder. This last game, he had 5 offensive rebounds alone. And so if you've got a guy like that, plus Steven Adams, probably the best offensive rebounder in the league, crashing the boards, you're going to get a lot of second chance points and just a lot of grit and grind buckets.
That's what we obviously know. The Thunder love that. They love offensive rebounding. They love guys that are gritty. And that's what I love about Diallo. A lot of the talking heads I listen to and the things I read, anything you can get offensively from him is a bonus.
Yeah.
And so far the Thunder have got a lot. It is preseason. We don't want to go crazy. But it's exciting to see these young athletic guys. And like you said, we got a concussion protocol with Terrence Ferguson.
And then Dre's out another 2 months.
And so we're looking at some injuries.
Yeah.
And so what are what are the timetables looking like?
So for Russ, I haven't heard. I know he was supposed to be reevaluated 4 to 6 weeks after the procedure, which would have been, this week or last. You see him on the practice court. He's sitting on the bench like he's dressed ready to play. I don't think he wants to miss that first game against Golden State, against Kevin Durant.
I was just about to mention that. It's actually on the header.
Yeah, it's on the promo
for NBA, which is just awesome. It doesn't have Russ's picture, but it's the OU or Oklahoma City Thunder versus Golden State Warriors. We're just switching gears.
I don't think he wants to miss that game. If it were me, I would start Diallo. He does so much more on both ends of the floor than Ferguson or Abrines are putting out at this point. He's better defensively. He's more confident. He's a better off-the-ball defender. He had 2 huge blocks in this last game. They played against Milwaukee. Just came from the weak side and threw something out of bounds. So he's looked really good. Yeah.
So Terrence Ferguson, if you didn't hear, he had a pretty bad collision. Is in NBA's concussion protocol, which is good that they have that. By the way,
definitely.
It's kind of crazy to think about. They kind of have as good of a concussion protocol as the NFL does. That's a whole other story for a different day. But T. Ferg is in that protocol, which is kind of sucks for him because I think he needed some of this camp development. Hopefully he got a lot better as it went because, like you said, Diallo kind of so far looks like he's just more physically ready to play. And then Andre Roberson, what about him?
He had a little setback. He had that knee injury, that gruesome injury back last year against Detroit, I believe, and so everything was working great, and then he had another small procedure, had a setback with the injury itself, and he's going to be out another 2 months. I'm just hoping to see him back by Christmas time, honestly. And so if the Thunder can play well until then, until they get him back, let him kind of slowly work back in and have him back 100% by the postseason, which At this point, that's all this team is judged on. Where they're going to be in the postseason, how far they can make it in the playoffs. As long as he's back by then, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, and hopefully we can see him again in those, like you said, around Christmas time would be awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be a big deal for Thunder. So all the Thunder fans out there, let's try to just relax a little bit and just understand that this is a process. He's a young player.
20 years old.
Yeah, just 20, wow. He's going to come back. He's going to be back eventually. So let's just slow it down. All that matters is that we get in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think
and
regardless,
then be healthy in the playoffs and be hot. That's the key.
And I think regardless, these first few months, I think they'll be okay. Between the wing group of Diallo, Ferguson, Abrines, and then even TLC, Timothy Liawu Cabarro, I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name,
Is that
TLC.
the French guy?
Yeah, it's the French guy. Between those four, I think that they can do collectively at least what Andre was doing by himself on the floor.
Try to just kind of cover up that missing part.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Looking forward. Anything else big? I think we have actually a clip from Trey the night we're recording this. Trey Young, OU alumni, just was there for a year, but he had a big time shot.
Look at that. That's probably from 35 feet. And then hits the LeBron silencer after.
Just 2 seconds left. He puts his team up 3, and it is the preseason, but we see some good signs there from the Hawks. They're a young team, and it's gonna be exciting watching Trey going forward. Yeah,
I'm gonna love it. He's had some amazing passes. Not only this game he shot great from 3. I think 50% is what we looked at, but in a few other preseason games he's had off the glass alley oops and traffic to players. He's been nutmegging people. He's a highlight reel waiting to happen regardless of his size.
Yeah, so keep your eye on the play on the podcast. We'll be showing a lot of Trey Young plays.
Definitely,
I'm sure.
Yeah, he'll be all over it.
Forward. And then we also have some Jimmy Butler stuff, and this is kind of some drama in the NBA. NBA is just keen on drama all the time.
I love it.
So Jimmy Butler, for those, I'm gonna just kind of do an intro and just let people know what's going on with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is a player that got traded to the Timberwolves. Was that a year ago?
Yeah, draft day a year ago.
A year ago. So now he finds himself on the Timberwolves. He has a season of up and downs. He was kind of hurt. But a lot of stuff in the offseason went down where he's kind of calling out his teammates for being soft and just not being that type of competitor. He's a special type of competitor.
Yeah.
And then so now he demands a trade. And we see all this drama going on. And then today, like the day we're recording this, he actually goes ahead and practices with the team he wants a trade from. We don't see that very often.
No, you don't. Normally, which you can kind of put some of that onto upper management, because a lot of times when a guy requests a trade, you want that guy as far away from teammates as possible.
It's just a toxic vibe.
Well, they didn't. They said, "Come on in. We want you at practice." So what is this man? One of my favorite players in the league, Jimmy G Buckets. The G stands for gets. And what does he do? He shows up to practice an hour late. Not only does he show up to practice an hour late, he proceeds to just talk so much trash on the first team, calling out players, saying, "Hey, you're soft. Hey, you're soft. Hey, he can't guard you. He's soft." Takes these third-string guys who aren't going to make this roster. These are guys that are going to be playing in China and in Europe and hopefully in the G League. These guys aren't going to make an NBA roster. He takes 4 of these guys, picks them up off the bench, says, "Hey, let's go," and proceeds to beat the first string, the starters, in a game of pickup. And what I was told is that he ended up matching up with Karl Anthony Towns, which is their cornerstone. And for those who need reference, he's their big inside man. 6 foot, 6'10", 7 feet tall. Jimmy says, "I want him," guards him, tells him he's soft, he's not going to score on him, and Karl Anthony Towns proceeds to get 0 buckets, dribbles the ball off of his foot, looks scared to death.
What a mess. So then this meme is born.
The meme is born.
So this is Jimmy Butler listening to, this is actually an interview that this is Doris Burke, maybe,
or Rachel Nichols, one of the two.
Rachel Nichols, maybe.
Yeah.
Is doing an interview with Jimmy Butler, so this is his face.
Yeah.
And then the next shot.
That's me looking at my plate Thanksgiving Day.
It says, "At one point, Butler found himself guarding Towns in the post." Towns is the big guy they brought in through the draft. Towns in the post, and when the big man received an entry pass, Butler yelled, "He can't do blank against me." And Towns ended up kicking the ball out of bounds, one league source said. And then this is a picture of Karl.
That's Karl Anthony Towns for reference.
When I kicked the ball out of bounds.
Yeah. Or when Jimmy Butler calls you soft, you're gonna be worried.
It's mostly memes. We're gonna laugh about this and make fun of it. I feel a little bad for Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins just having to put up with this. They're young players looking for a role model. Unfortunately, Jimmy's just memeing. He does not care. He's been in the league for a long time. He just doesn't have any time to put up with these guys. He said, I'm done with these guys. I'm going to meme them. I'm going to show up to practice even though I'm not going to play for this team. And I'm gonna expose them with the third string.
Yeah, and so I like it. I know that you probably don't. I love it because when Jimmy first got to this team, he tried to defer, let those guys get their buckets. He tried to show them how to watch film, how to prepare for games, how to do this. And that was last year. You know, the season starts October, November. By December, he was done. He said all these dudes do is play Fortnite and just, do what kids do. And I think the turning point for him was when they showed up and didn't know who they were playing that day on the schedule.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just shows you're not prepared. And Jimmy he's just been a tough-nosed guy. Comes from Tomball down in Texas. Goes the JUCO route, goes to Marquette. He's the last pick in the first round. He's grinded for everything he's got.
No, he's the last pick in the first round.
Yeah, he's grinded for everything he's got. So he just expects guys on his team to work as hard and want it as bad as he does. And unfortunately, at this point, these dudes don't.
And listen, I get that. Here's the problem. These are young guys, impressionable dudes, and they need someone. The reason the Bulls traded Jimmy to the Timberwolves, part of the reason the Timberwolves wanted Jimmy so bad is they needed a leader for these guys. They knew these guys were soft. They wanted someone to come in and say, hey, these guys, we love them to death, but they're just not who we thought they were when we drafted them. They're soft. Can you come in and be a leader to them? And Jimmy goes, nah, I mean, I'll try a little bit, but then I'll meme them. And so, I definitely see it from the management's position. This is a terrible spot for them to be in. And we don't really know what they're going to do with him. Jimmy demanded a trade, but showed up to practice today. So is he willing to play for this team?
See,
it's a big mess.
It's a big mess, and I blame a lot of the mess on the front office.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who said, no, we're not trading Jimmy. You heard conflicting things. The general manager, Scott Layden, and the head coach and head of basketball operations, Tom Thibodeau, just went completely opposite direction of the owner. The owner's saying, yeah, he's available, we're trading him. The GM and other guys aren't answering the phone. So it's like, no, he's not available. They convinced Jimmy to come to practice. They started this ordeal. Jimmy wanted to stay away. Jimmy said, no, I'll go to the facility when they're playing games. I'm going to keep my game up. I want to be traded. And I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, so real quick, before we end the NBA segment, let's get on this last clip. This is the pure synergy from Harden and our guy Melo, who we just had last season in the booth.
Yeah, I mean, they're in midseason form, it looks like. Harden staring his defender down, doing the okie doke. He just pounds the heck out of the ball.
He just dribbles the air right out of it.
I mean, yeah. And so
just toss it into the chair.
And if you look at the shot clock in the bottom, it looks like Harden's been dribbling for about 19 seconds.
Wow, you're
And then
right.
is going to pass the ball off with 5.
6 seconds.
Yeah. So
what a bad pass, by the way.
Yeah.
What is that? It's not to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, Melo's wide open. He probably, pump fakes 3 times and gets a shot clock
If you throw a real
violation.
pass to him, maybe he hits a shot.
Yeah, Melo's in prime form right there to hit 2 jab steps, put his heels on the line and take a 2-pointer.
He had no desire to shoot a 3 there.
No.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, who knows what we'll see from the Houston Rockets.
It'll be
today.
interesting to say the least. That team is going to be, if nothing else, fun to watch just for moments like this.
All right, yeah, and so that concludes our podcast for today. Big time NBA starting up next week. We're going to be talking about it a little bit.
Yeah, the Thunder play opening night against the Warriors next Tuesday. It should be a big game.
It's going to be huge. We're going to be detailing all those little things. Every time we play the Warriors, it's a huge rivalry. It's kind of fun. We're going to be super thrilled to bring that to you guys. Check us out, Oklahoma Sports Podcast. This is the Oklahoma Sports Podcast, the little podcast on the prairie. Thank you guys so much for checking us out on episode 1. Check us out on YouTube and our website.
Apple Podcast.
We're everywhere. So
Everywhere.
check us out.
Thanks, guys.